So what I'm thinking is maybe we can start looking at the DAST tool itself. And I know there were a couple of changes to the DAST tool that you had to make so that it could be called from the on-demand. You wanted to see if you could pull up that code that you had to make changes to there. And I guess the other question I had regarding that is what the tool itself knows about on-demand. Does it know about the profiles, or those profiles get expanded on the Rails side before it gets to the scanner?
Right. So I guess, let me just find that and then I'll share my screen.
Okay.
So what I had to do to integrate DAST with on-demand was essentially add support for base 64 encoded authentication parameters. That was the password and also the request headers. And these came in base 64 encoded into the DAST tool, basically because we need to base 64 encode them to obfuscate them in the runner to mask them.
Got it. So can you just send that URL to me just via chat? I'm going to put that into a document, just some notes here.
Sure.
So these are base 64 encoded, but they're not encrypted.
No, they're not encrypted.
Okay.
I have lost. Oh, that's why.
Oh yeah, it's really hard to find once you're.
Do you mean if I just put it in Slack?
Slack's fine. Yep, perfect. Because presumably what we'll do is we'll put this same code in the API tool as well. Although I don't know that we'll be using the username and password quite the same way.
Right.
So the value gets passed in as auth password, so it's auth password base 64.
It's it gets passed in as an environment variable, so it's DAST underscore password underscore base 64.
Okay.
And the request headers takes the same form where it's just this suffix of base 64 at the end.
Okay. And then down on, it looks like 490, you're just unencoding it.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, a little bit lower, but 512.
Yep.
Okay. So there's basically this introduced, it looks like 3 new environment variables: the password, the username, and then the headers in base 64.
I think it's actually only 2. So we don't treat the username as secret. We only treat the password and the headers as being secrets.
Okay. Cool. So it gets those. And then all the other variables that are getting passed in, like the DAST website and any of the other values. Was there anything that had to be changed in the DAST tool itself?
No, they're all just standard as is documented.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Is it worth taking a look at where they're generated in the monolith, or what?
Yeah, so I think this is really straightforward. So I think the update to the engine itself is straightforward. The next question I had was we're looking at adding some additional fields. And so I'd love to see how those profiles are expanded into those variables, and then also what we would need to do to add a new field.
What sorts of fields are they? Are they things which would be secret? Are they things which would be associated with the site, or are they things that are just like configuration options for the scanner itself?
So the fields that we're looking at, well, one is we want to have like a har file path, which would just be just another variable with a path that links to a path to a file in their repository. We may be adding additional username and passwords because there's other authentication types, and the username and password right now is only requested as part of a website. It's not requested as part of the API. So if you pull up the website where you add a new site, so what you'll find in here is once you select API, once you select API, there's no ability to add in password. So I think we're going to want to add in username, passwords, or in the case of API, sometimes it's just going to be like a authentication token or some type of header. If we use the headers, I think what we've got in place today will work, right?
Yes, should do. But I suppose what's maybe a little bit different here is that at the moment, all of the things that we treat as secret are associated with the site, but it sounds like here what we want to do is we want to extend the scanner config with some password details, which it isn't set up to do, but it's something that we could add relatively straightforwardly.
Right. Yep. Okay.
So like here are the two locations where we actually generate the config. So the simplest one is the scanner profile. So you can see there's essentially some database columns that we pull out and we map them onto these environment variables. And then similar process on the left here, where for a site profile, if we've got the target type is website, we set DAST website, we do some special stuff if it's not. And again, it's just that similar process of mapping database columns to the environment variables.
And so that's DAST site profile, .rb?
Yes. Do you want me to share them in the chat as well?
Yeah, that'd be great. And then the DAST scanner profile. So in both cases, it gets CI variables, and where is it pulling those variables out of? So because those are associated with a full profile, right? That's being saved in the database.
Yeah. So like those like auth_URL and auth_username, they all correspond to fields in the database.
Okay.
For this model.
Okay. So if we want to have new fields, we'd add additional columns to the database.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we add additional columns to the database, and then we'd add that to the GraphQL endpoint, and then in the website, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if we updated this file here, these two files, there's nothing else we like, these two files and then the GraphQL, there's no other place that these need to get expanded.
No, everything else is taken care of once this gets slipped into the builds.
Okay.
I suppose the only thing worth mentioning here is for secret variables, there's a slightly different process. So at the moment, we have this other table in the database which is associated with the site profile, called secret variables. And essentially it does something very similar. It checks to see if someone can actually read those, and then it populates the variable collection there. Is it worth showing that model as well?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So basically, it's a bit like the other CI secret variable tables we have already in the database, with some slight differences, where here, kind of like we were talking about before with the base 64 stuff, we always base 64 encode the variable here before we save it. And the reason is we can only mask variables which are base 64 encoded, and we don't want this ever to be leaked out into the job logs.
Right.
But I mean, in terms of how this would be integrated into another tool or another scanner, you just treat this as a key value store. And if we wanted to tweak the relationship, if we wanted to have it associated with scanner profiles rather than site profiles, we might need to make some changes to how it's structured, just because it works on the assumption that it's associated with the site profiles.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can keep it associated with just the site profile,
Okay.
so that we don't have to really change this too much.
Okay.
What was the variable that you were thinking might be associated with the scanner profile?
It was just when you were pointing out the interface, you were showing. I don't know if we were looking at the site profile or the scanner profile. I may have got the wrong end of the stick, but
Right.
I mean, if it's something that's not needed, then it doesn't
Well,
matter.
yeah, because I've actually been going back and forth. Like every time I look at that screen, I'm like, actually, that might be a scanner profile. There's some variables that could probably go on either side of the fence. Okay, cool. So this would not need. This does have the specific field, so it's got password or request headers. So if we added another one, so if we add a field like header token or something, that would go into the site profile secret variable, and then we'd use this instead of the site profile.
Yeah, these are basically just constants which are convenient to use throughout the monolith. They don't actually have any effect on how this works.
Okay. Got it. So where's the how do you know that this is used for the DAST request headers?
Let's see.
Hey, that was the fastest I've ever seen in the search work.
I don't know if it's giving me something meaningful, but basically there's a service object. Yeah, I think it's this one, where you can see here it creates the secret variables.
Okay.
And it references those constants there.
Okay.
So this might be another area that would need to be amended.
Yeah, so if we add a new secret one, we'd probably add a line 30 to that as well.
Yep.
And then this is, okay, cool. So what's the audit event that it creates? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a site profile.
Yep.
Gas profile. So create secret profile. Okay. Cool. So I think I've got this. So if we add another column, it's going to go into either the DAST scanner profile or DAST site profile. There's nothing that needs to be done on the scanner side because it's going to get expanded out to those environment variables from the monolith.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a secret variable, then we would probably add it here into add a line 30. We'd probably add a new constant just to follow the same pattern. And then I guess what's interesting here is this variable doesn't say the base 64. So like if you, the variable name in the monolith, in the DAST scanner was like password base 64.
Mm.
Do you know where it gets that, like, where does that suffix get added?
It's in the constant itself.
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Yep. Got
Yeah.
it. So that's what defines the name of the environment variable as it's going to show up in the scanner.
Yeah. And if you want to add a new secret, obviously in the scanner, you would have to add support for that variable.
Decoding that. Yep.
Yeah.
And in the scanner itself, in that Python code, we actually have those hard coded, right, as base 64.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So if we created like, a dozen of those, we could actually just look for base 64 in each of the environment variables and decode it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. With 2, we don't need to worry about something more flexible right now. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that covers it. This is really helpful. This will help us add stuff to the API tool.
Nice.
Yeah.